Hi everyone, welcome back to the episode 3 of the Grad School Playbook. Today we're going to share some tips and tricks to help you make your resume perfect. Fun fact, we recently used these ideas to help our friend improve his resume. In fact, we will be going through various stages of improving his resume, but we've masked out his name and details for privacy reasons. I would urge all of you to stay tuned till the end of the video because we will be reviewing 5 resumes in random, um, and we'll tell you towards the end of the video how you can send us your resumes. So let's jump in. Today we'll be reviewing John Doe's resume. From the very first look of it, I think it's a very concise and well organized resume. We have the header, the summary, education qualifications, work experience, academic projects, technical capabilities, and extracurricular. I also like the fact that it's a single page resume. I think a good resume should be a single page resume or max to max 2 pages. And also, you should try to keep it in the PDF format because that's universally accepted and very easily accessible in any environment. So, let's look at the header. Okay, so John Doe has a very artistic font. We decided to go with something more formal. Looking at his email ID, it's quite descriptive. So again, we decided to switch it with something more formal. We found the bullet point used in his header very irregular. So we again implemented a more formal bullet structure and also plugged in his GitHub link and LinkedIn details. Wow, that looks so much better. What do you think, Vedant?
Thanks, Gamini. Oh yeah, so that's a great improvement from what John had initially. It looks much more formal and clean up, and it's definitely more eye-catching than what he had. So let's move on to the next part of the resume, which is the summary section of the resume. Essentially, the summary part is a short paragraph at the beginning of a resume that highlights a job seeker's professional skills and experience. It's more of an elevator pitch for the recruiter to see and understand the person's objectives and the goals and the expertise it brings to the organization. So looking at what John has, first things first, he has the section headed as objective. We need to have that change to a summary, which sounds more formal. Um, Moving on, as I mentioned before, it should be a concise summary of your experience and your skills you bring to the company. So right now, what we recommend John is to have this in his resume, which is quite a brief introduction of his experience as well as his skills. So it's very important to remember that in the summary section, you need to highlight your role, your key skills, as well as your work experience. The next section would be the education qualification. So as we are very familiar with this section, by looking at John's resume, we see there are some obvious flaws in the way he's presented the information. Starting with the education of his master's, he has mentioned his address, which is unnecessary, and so that can be removed. And we can also fix the indentation and fonts of the section. We can also revamp the relevant coursework to mention those courses which would be helpful for him during his job tenure, and also mention the timeline during which he was attending his education, and the same can be repeated for his undergraduate experience as well. So uh, looking at his old resume and the modified resume, there's a stark difference, and I'm sure that will be very eye-catching for anyone who reads his resume. So just to summarize this section very quickly, make sure that your indentation and font and sizing are in line, and there is no need to have your address in place. mention the location of your education as well as the dates you've attended. GPA is optional. If you have a good GPA and you will like to show it, always show it. If you feel it might be a hindrance to your application, it's always advisable not to mention it. And always relevant, include relevant coursework for a recruiter to have a holistic evaluation of your profile. So having said that, I'll pass on the attention to Karan, who will be walking us
Uh,
through. Yeah,
sure. Vedant, I had a question there. Yeah, I just wanted to know, like, when you mentioned relevant courseworks there. Should we mention all the 10 courses we took during our masters or bachelors? Because we would have taken multiple courses, and if I mention all the courses I took,
right.
it might get crowded in there.
I understand. So there are 2 points over here. Point number one is always mention the relevant coursework for the latest education. There is no need to mention it for your undergrad as well. So if you have a master's, there is no need to mention the relevant coursework for your undergrad because, well, the most relevant coursework is your master's right now. And to answer your question, no, do not mention all the coursework. Only make sure you map what you learned in your education to the job you're going to be working for, and just mention those courseworks.
Okay.
I'll be passing on the attention to Karan now, who will be taking us through the work experience. So, Karan, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Vedant. That was some really good points about education. I really think it makes this look much better. Moving on to experience and, or I would say, relevant work experience and academic projects. John has some really good experience. He is looking to be looking for jobs in software engineering, and as we can see from his experience, that he has already worked as software engineer and cloud engineering intern with two organizations. Your relevant work experience and your academic projects are basically a spine of your resume, and you have to make sure that this stands out in your resume. All the job responsibilities that for the jobs that you're applying to should should match the skills that you have, or the other way around. Actually, the skills in your resume should match the job responsibilities that you are applying to. That way, higher the match count, more the chances of your resume being able being picked up. If we go over John's resume right now, we see he has worked for Diamond Corporation for 3 years, and he has not highlighted any skills or any tools that he has used. And if you're working as an engineer, those are your tools of the trade. If you don't highlight them, recruiter the you're not going to make an impression on the recruiter itself. So what we are going to do here is we are going to change the fonts to match fonts earlier. Then we are going to make sure that his position, the position he worked at, is highlighted. And then, even before starting all the jobs and responsibilities, all the tools he used, we are going to summarize his 3 years of experience in just one line. As Vedant mentioned earlier, an elevator pitch. He worked as a network system team in network system team, helped with development. That basically tells a lot to recruiter. Then moving on, we basically highlight all the tools that he used. Tools like Python. He used Python to write travel salesman algorithm. JavaScript. He developed websites. He worked with APIs. And the most important part here is quantifying your work. Here, he basically saved 300 hours of productivity. We need to mention that. And how he did it, we mentioned the tools he used as well. We do the same thing with the precision where he worked as cloud engineering intern, and we again highlight the tools he used. We highlight his jobs and responsibilities by elevator pitch again in a summary, and that's about it. And now you can see that it looks so much better when you put side by side, though it has almost the same content, but it highlights what his tools, his skills better. And I think being on other side of the table, this makes much more sense. Uh, Gamini, I know you hire a lot of time. Which would you prefer and why? Yeah.
Definitely adding the numbers and the tools and highlighting the impact of what you've done really helps because it shows that your role has been impactful, your work has been impactful, and
Okay.
I think the way we have improved it definitely portrays that very well.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, we need to make sure that while you're outlining your experience, you need to make sure that there are 6 things that you are aware of. You have to make sure that your headline is proper, is readable, and is to the point. You need to mention that what were your responsibilities were, not just your duties. This kind of gives it a good rank to it. You have to quantify your efforts, highlight the facts, highlight the skills, highlight the tools. Do not use abbreviations that are very particular to just your field, because the first eye that goes on your resume is the recruiter, not just an engineer. So they need to know what you worked on. And though you need to keep your sentences short, they need to be coherent. I think Akash, you would be the perfect person to take on.
Okay. So now talking about the academic projects, we see that John has worked on 3 relevant projects. He has developed an app on the iOS platform and a home automation system and a website for his college fest. We can see that he did mention some of his skills, such as Objective C for the iOS meme app and C++ for home automation. But I think for a reviewer, it will make their life simple if he specifically highlights the skill set which he has used to do this project. And it is also important for him to have bullet points for his contribution for each project, just so that it is visually more appealing and clear to any reader. So we can see that in the revised version of his academic projects, we helped him to add the bullet points to the 3 projects. We highlighted the skill sets that he used, and which this makes it more clear. And also another thing that we mentioned is for the home automation, that the project was done as part of the Google hackathon, which I think is relevant to put here. So the 4 main things that one has to pay attention while drafting this section is always put in uh, the relevant projects according to the position that you are applying to. If you are applying for a software developer role, focus on the software development projects that you have done. Also, please mention the impact that the project had on the bigger goal for an industry or university or a competition. And definitely mention the recognitions. If you were a winner at the hackathon, I think it should be mentioned. And bullet points is necessary, because it, for a reader it is just more simpler to go through these points than if you have the content as complete sentences one after the other. So once you have all your academic projects in place, next comes a section where you can basically show off the set of skills that you master. So let's see how skillful John is. We can clearly see that he knows some tools, few database softwares, something in automation, and an achievement out of nowhere, right? But this section clearly tells me that John lacks a key non-technical capability to express himself in a presentable manner. So we had to spend some time with John, talk to him, and polish this important section, which catches the eye of any institute or company looking to recruit. Firstly, we rephrased the section to technical skills instead of capabilities. Next, we rearranged his skill set so that it is visually appealing. You can also see we made some edits to the headers as well. We added a license number to authenticate his certifications. And Gamini, what do you think? License numbers and all increases the authenticity of skills, or what's your take on this?
Well, it definitely does because it shows that you have gotten your validation for whatever certificate you have. It definitely adds a leverage. So I think that's a good idea, adding a license number and adding some
Fantastic,
authenticity.
fantastic. Awesome. So we also removed his qualitative assessment in programming languages as well. So if needed, you may add a number of years of experience in each of the programming languages you know. One more important thing to note here is that you must mention the skills you used to complete the projects mentioned earlier, which Karan went over. All this just adds credibility to whatever you are saying and writing in your resume. Now, let's look at the extracurricular section. So, before we jump in to see what John has put in his resume, let me tell you just one key point that you should keep in your mind before drafting this section. So you need to self-assess the impact factor of your extracurricular by just simply introspecting how much you can make yourself stand apart or make yourself exclusive, from the rest of the applicants. So John, from this section, we know that he was part of the debate team for 2 years. We clearly don't know if he won any popular competition. If he did, then that could make its way into this section. He was also a volunteer at a donation campaign, which definitely shows his commitment towards society. But we don't know what role he played during this campaign. We also see that he was a regular blogger on Quora, and after talking to him, we came to know that he didn't win any debating competition, and his role in the donation campaign was minimalistic. But his blogs on Quora had received national attention by New York Times, which is interesting and should definitely be mentioned in this section. So, guys, hope all of you learned from John's mistakes and got some very good suggestions from our panel to create a perfect resume. As you all must know by now, that the key ingredients to a resume are the header, summary, education qualification, work experience, academic projects, technical capabilities, and extracurriculars. We highlighted some common errors to avoid and correct to make a good first impression of your application. If you have any clarifications or questions regarding your resume, please let us know through the comment section below. Also, we will be reviewing and helping you edit your resume. So, the way in which we want to do this is we will give out our email ID in the description below, where you can send in your resume, and we will be picking 5 random resumes from the pool of resumes that we get. So for your reference, we will also be sharing John's bad resume and good resume after all the edits. So stay tuned for more content to help you in your professional career. Thanks a lot.